Glitch showed us the final teaser of the second episode, which will appear on May 3rd. And I am 99% sure that this scene is just a joke and will not be shown to us in the new episode. We can immediately notice that Kinger and Gangle are locked inside some slot machine, and Kane is watching them closely while Pomni and Gummigoo are standing somewhere behind them. But if you look closely, you'll notice that these two have clearly gotten much smaller than they are. And why exactly are they locked up? Maybe it's a reference to the pilot episode where Kinger and Gangle were in the same group during the search for Zubal. Or maybe Kane decided to show a lottery in which the loser will be the main loser of the new episode, and whoever Kane draws first will be doomed to the greatest suffering among all the inhabitants of the digital circus in the second episode, and I'm sure it will be Gangle. However, let's not forget Pomni and the alligator. We immediately see that half of Gummigoo's body is stuck in the textures, while Pomni watches in horror. I think that this scene is a kind of a mirror in which Gummigoo suffers already, and not Pomni, who was badly abused by the alligator in the new episode. Now let's answer the main questions of the new episode. Did this really happen to Pomni? Why did Princess Lulilalu give the secret key to Ragatha? And why does Jack seem very upset at the end? Why did Zubal give up on Kane's adventure again? And what happens to Gangle's mask? What role do Gummigoo and Fudge Monster have in the new episode? The very key that Princess Lulilalu gave to our characters has also become a topic of discussion. Why exactly did Ragatha get it, and what does it open? Let's get to the point. And why Ragatha? If you look closely, Ragatha and the princess are a bit similar in appearance, and I think they are not very different in personality either. And if you look at the whole cast, Gangle is crybaby, Kinger is insane, Pomni is very upset, and Jax I wouldn't trust with anything important. And Ragatha gives the impression of a kind and responsible character, and considering the fact that this key was given at the end of the episode, it is a gift. For a long time, I was sure that this key is just a so-called key to the city, which is given to an honorable resident. But our characters live in a circus, and therefore cannot be honored guests. I also had an idea that this key opens a guest room in Candy Castle, but Kane would not let the characters go for a long time, so it would be pointless for them to live in a guest room, or maybe a house, if Kane would return them to the digital circus at the end of the day anyway. And after a few days of thinking, I thought that this key could be one of the parts of a large set of keys that, when combined, turn into one huge key that opens the most cherished door of all the inhabitants of the digital circus. And if you remember how Pomni was very close to getting out, but Kane managed to get her back in, you'll notice that Pomni just opened the door, and because of that, an illusion was triggered that made Pomni experience the real terror. But maybe with the key, this path is shortened to 1 second, and by opening the door labeled Exit, any character will immediately find themselves in the real world. The next mystery will be Pomni because it is this cute girl who is the main character of the amazing digital circus. Long ago in the pilot episode, we saw that Pomni was on the verge of becoming an abstracted monster after the infected Ragatha touched her hands. And then throughout the episode, Pomni's arm glitched. However, from this we realize that the process of becoming an abstracted monster is not a quick one, because Ragatha, though completely infected, still managed to survive until the end of the pilot episode. We also learn that only Kane is able to cure our characters. However, the moment when Ragatha was healed, no one even touched Pomni, but her hand was able to heal on its own, which suggests that Pomni actually has much greater powers than any other inhabitant of the digital circus, and she can't just be abstracted. However, in the trailer, we can clearly see that the whole Pomni's arm has become similar to the creature Kaufmo became, and just for the sake of a joke, the creators couldn't add something like that to the trailer. So we will really see such a scene, but how real it is. As we said, Pomni had to go through a lot of things before he went to sleep, and all these events could be very probably reflected in Pomni's memory. But since the awakening from sleep will be at the beginning of the episode, I have little faith that Gooseworx will really answer the main question of the new episode so easily, and so here we have to look at two scenes. In one, we see Pomni flying out of the lake at an insane speed, and in the second, we are shown Fudge Monster. I think that these fragments are interconnected, and even though we see Fudge Monster trying to eat the truck with circus residents, I think that Pomni was spared and just thrown away. And as you can understand, the distance that Pomni climbed is about 30 meters, which means that the fall will be very, very hard. And as a result of this landing, Pomni is likely to hit her head and lose consciousness, or even go into a short coma. And just then, she might experience a visual hallucination in which she sees her greatest fear. But what if this scene really happens to Pomni, but we will see it only at the end of the series, and now the creators just decided to make a joke on us? What do you think it is? Zubal almost doesn't appear in the new episode. Zubal immediately loudly asserted herself as a character not to be trifled with or mocked. And Zubal also admires her determination in refusing to do things she doesn't like, and in the pilot episode she had to experience punishment from Kane for it. And apparently in the second episode, the story will repeat itself, and Zubal will also tell Kane that she doesn't want it, which will make Kane very angry. and most likely we will see a little dialogue between them and then some sort of punishment. But if you are worried that Cain can somehow harm Zubal, you are very wrong, because as it has been known for a long time that the third episode will be dedicated to Zubal, and so her role in the second episode will be just very insignificant, but nothing terrible will happen to her. Remember the usual behavior of Jax, not only in the pilot episode but also in the second one. Usually this guy behaves arrogant, disrespectful, and likes to bully others a lot. In the new episode, we will see him in this role again, but we are shown one scene that completely contradicts everything that Jax is associated with. We see him sitting there helpless and sad and depressed, and if nothing had happened and he was bored, he would most likely start mocking Max, but he wouldn't just sit there and pour water. But what could have happened at that moment? It's likely that this scene preceded this one, so this period of sadness is nothing more than a temporary occurrence. And if we don't see Max in the following scenes, then we can be sure that it was then that Max was exchanged for the binoculars that Gumagoo had originally and then Gangle had. And in that case, I have a theory that Jax has been using the purple alligator as his victim for a long time, and at that moment there was a negotiation between Gumagoo and the circus people. And all of Jax's sadness is due to the fact that he lost his favorite toy. I also have a suspicion that Jax is not as emotionless as he wants to seem, and deep down he is worried about Pomni, who was kidnapped by Gumagoo, and judging by the fact that we never saw her again, and in the next shot she flew out of the water, our alligator did not return Pomni to her friends, which could also cause a moment of sadness for Jax. The most depressing character who to see happy is more like a miracle at the beginning of the new episode will have a pretty happy look. And as we already know, Gangle has only one mask, and it is a comedy mask that makes Gangle happy. And the sad face that we often see on Gangle is her face. That's why we never saw this so-called tragedy mask break. But we all remember how in the pilot episode, first Pomni and then Jax finally broke this mask. But why then in the trailer we see it again? Most likely Cain just created a new mask for her so that Gangle would go on a new adventure in a good mood, but it didn't last long and we saw the familiar picture again. But what happened to the comedy mask? I think that just like in the pilot episode, it's all the fault of Jax, who was very excited at the beginning of the second episode, and maybe he just pushed Gangle and it was a repeat of the initial scene of the pilot episode. Or Jax decided that in a good mood, Gangle will be distracted from their task and decided not to break the mask and just take it away and promised to return it as soon as all the characters return to the circus. But as we know, Jax probably won't return the mask because he really likes it when the rest of the circus people suffer. Gumagoo and Fudge Monster will be the anti-heroes of the new episode. And if Fudge Monster will be an episodic villain that we will see for 2 to 3 minutes at the most, Gumagoo will haunt us during the whole episode. And these two are to blame for all the troubles of our characters. Most likely Pomni flew out of the lake, and all the excitement of the characters at the beginning of the episode and all the problems in the future are connected with Gumagoo and his gang. And on this leak we see a very strange scene where Jax and Pomni are running away from a crowd of mannequins who in the trailer welcomed them very kindly. And we also see Cain, who like in the previous leak is very happy with everything that is going on. And if we pay attention to Pomni, she tries her best to escape from this crowd while Jax looks like he doesn't care and just walks away from them. But why were these characters shown as positive in the trailer, and now they are furiously running after Pomni and Jax? They may seem negative towards the circus people, but I'm sure they're just expressing their hospitality. But don't forget to say hello to them, as Glitch told us. Maybe the dummies are a reflection of the place they are in, and since we found out that all the Kangy Canyon residents liked the circus people, they just don't want to let them go home and run after them to spend as much time together as possible. Or maybe it's just an image that makes no sense. I wish you success and good luck and see you soon in new videos that appear every 2 days.